But what made you decide to ultimately come back to Cebu? Because you had 11 years in
Yes.
Japan,
Yes, yes.
4 companies,
Yes.
made friends, had interactions,
Yeah.
leveled up in terms of professional
Mhm.
experience. What led you back here?
There were a couple of reasons, actually. And I think the first reason was basically because of a wake up call. We had one of the strongest typhoons, 2022, right? That was.
You mean Odette?
Odette, yes.
Well, late 2021,
Right.
December.
Sorry, yeah, 2021, yes, that's right. And that was December 2021. That was one of the worst typhoons, I believe, in Cebu history, in the sense that, like, telephone poles collapsed, buildings
Yeah,
broke
it took
down.
months to fully recover.
To recover,
I
right?
was really there. My condo was really in bad shape.
How was it for you and your wife? Like, was everything
We
okay?
had to hide in the common CR in the
Yeah.
condo. That was the only safe spot. Because if we stayed in the masters, we could have been injured
Yes.
with the glass
breaking? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was tough, but yeah, we had to. But yeah, a good learning experience also,
Yeah.
where we were able to really thrive
Mhm.
and really be tested,
Mhm.
getting gasoline,
Yes.
trying to fix things.
Right. And you know, for me, I was still in Japan back then. And so, and I still remember this very clearly because it was it was actually a bad day for me because I was in the middle of trying to catch a deadline, and the day before the typhoon came, and my mom was calling because she was actually asking for something lang like that. I don't know, like, if she wanted to warn me about the typhoon, or she wanted to talk to me about something, or something. But I was busy with my deadline because I had to submit it within the day. And then when I answered her, I told her, like I said, I'll just call later because I'm very busy, like that. And you know what happened, right? Like, next day, typhoon comes, no more reception, no more cell reception, no more contact with
Yeah,
anybody.
it was very bad.
And I just found out about the damage through Facebook because somebody was able to post pictures to show that this is the situation. And on top of that, people were evacuating, people died. And, you know, it really struck a chord with me because at that time, I was thinking that my supporting my family was through providing remittance, through providing funds. But at that moment, I realized that I needed to be better, since, you know, the true measure of being a parent's child is to really give back to them and be
Better in what sense do you mean?
to really just try to be with them, to take care of them.
Beyond the money support
Yes.
that you've been giving.
Exactly.
The presence.
Exactly. And for the longest time, I always had that mindset that maybe just giving back in terms of, like, monetary aspects or things like that was enough. But when I was in that position, and of course after that, I kept on trying to call, I kept on trying to look for people who could connect me to my parents just to see if they were okay or not okay. It literally took 2 weeks before I could get back in touch with them. And even during that time, of course, like, thankfully, my 2 parents were okay, but the damage to our house was severe. Like, you know, there was no
It
electricity.
was a house, not a condo.
Basically like a sort of apartment. So roof was damaged. Basically, like, of course, car was damaged. No electricity, no water. It was hard. And I believe for our viewers here today as well, I'm sure that all of us had that sort of shared experience,
Yeah.
that life was difficult, you know?
It was really like a disaster movie. Like,
Yeah.
it was kind of an end of the world type movie.
Right.
Because I remember gas stations were lined up
Yeah.
for 6 hours or more. You had to
Yes.
line up ahead at dawn.
Yeah.
Just so you can get.
Get it, right?
And
It was terrible, truly. And that was that wake-up call to tell me that, look, my parents are not getting any younger. they're already senior. And if you cannot even be there for them in those points or in the times that they need you, then what is the point of being their child or their son?
Yeah.
So that sort of moved me to make the decision to kind of leave my career there.
And be more present
Yes.
for your parents.
Yes. And, you know, of course, now that I'm back here in the Philippines, indeed, I get the chance to take care of them, to see them daily. I get the chance to talk around with my dad, my mom. And I think that it's thanks to that we are closer more than ever. But of course, at the same time, you know, still have to look for a living. So, and of course, I didn't want to waste the skill set that I gained in Japan. So that's why I started my freelance interpretation and translation work, where let's say government will hire me, or let's say private investors or private industries wanting to expand in the Philippines hire me, so that I sit in the middle to kind of do the interpretation and document translation in the meetings and stuff.
I can certainly avail of such services because we do deal with a lot of Japanese businessmen, executives, so that might come in handy one day for me if
For
I
sure.
learn some Japanese.
For sure.
So we can collaborate or venture into that also.
Definitely.
Or maybe should we have like visitors?
Yeah.
We can certainly utilize such.
I'd be more than happy to help out. And yeah, if you need anything Japan related, you can just let me know anytime. Always
Yeah.
happy to help.
Okay. Anyway, you strike me as a very good son because I remember early on you were really close to your mom also. And it's good that you still really think about the well-being of your parents as they're aging. I also came to realize that, especially I lost my dad last year, so that was quite painful. And
Yeah.
I realized, it's true that we get so caught up with work that we set aside the relationships that matter. So that's a good realization, and we need that balance.
I know that, and I still remember this back when we were in grade school, that you were also very close to your mother, right? And I think that, you know, for me, that sort of made me realize that the two of us were alike in a lot of ways, in the sense that, you know, you also deeply care for your family, and, you know, that's truly a
Yeah,
nice
I
thing.
think family is the cornerstone of course, society. Without it, it would just be chaotic.
Right.
But it's challenging to keep things afloat because we
Yes.
get so caught up with different things, and
Of course.
and clashes occur,
Yes.
disagreements happen,
Yes.
and that's really part of the condition we're in. So it's really an ongoing battle as we progress each day.
Mhm.
So it's not easy. It's easier said than done.
Definitely.
Like we can throw out some quote or some sound bite and sound really mature, but in reality it can be quite the opposite or
Yeah.
quite ironic.
True. Yeah. The
So,
irony of life, I suppose.
So going back to the interpreting,
Sure.
when did you decide to get into that? When you were back in Cebu, that's what you wanted to focus on?
Yes. So that was.
So you're freelance also.
Yes.
So you just companies call you up if they need to avail of such.
Yes. So it's more of like a kind of referral sort of process, because as of right now, I'm still making my website. But generally speaking, Japanese friends of mine know other Japanese, or let's say friends of mine from Philippines or abroad know some other acquaintances, and that's how they know of me. And
So through word of mouth.
through word of mouth, yes.
You're not really marketing yourself so loudly as
Mm.
this Japanese interpreter.
Not as much. I would definitely like to put myself out there, but I guess at this point, I'm also trying to figure out how I can put myself out there. But so far, I've been very lucky to have the chance to have done a couple of interpretation jobs for the government and for, you know, other companies, and yeah.
What's the rate for that? Or what's the Like just a ballpark if you don't want to specify too much.
Well, I think that really depends on the type of interpretation that you provide, and also who the interpreter is going to be. Because there can be some interpreters that will charge super cheap, but I have seen that these interpreters, and it is very sad to see, because some customers might have high expectations of other interpreters, but the problem is that the way they translate is too basic, and they just tend to translate word for word, which is, from my experience, something that you cannot exactly do, because you need to, and this is something that I believe in the UN and other sort of global interpreters do as well, that you need to know how to temper language so that it doesn't create a war. Like if somebody says like a bad word, or if somebody says like you're crazy or something, you wouldn't want to say that to the person that you're talking to, because that could lead to a breakdown in negotiations. So you need to try to find an appropriate statement that can sort of temper that out. And with what I provide, that's what I try to do. Along with another thing that I have noticed, talking about, let's say, structure, for instance. Some people, the issue is that when they come in, they don't necessarily have a game plan in mind, bullet points that like, okay, by the end of the meeting, I want this to be done. By the end of the meeting, I want us to come into an agreement with something like that. So what I do is during the meeting and even before the meeting, I try to talk with the parties in advance to sort of get an idea of what it is exactly that they want, so that meeting comes, everything is smooth.
Yeah, I think that gap is unavoidable, because I think I've seen that firsthand also, where you want to say something, but even if you translate it, it can't be word for word, because it comes off totally different.
Yes.
Like you meant to say this, but even if translated, it comes off differently. So it's perceived differently, not what you intended it to be. So there's that gap, and it can be difficult, especially, of course, different cultures. Like, of course, like Cebu, there's a Cebuano culture, right? How we say things, how it's perceived.
Right.
Then if you relay that to someone in Manila or a Tagalog, it's a different perception. So I think we should be aware of those tiny subcultures, you would say.
Agree.
Yeah.
And so with that sort of level of service that I provide, in terms of like filling in those gaps, or kind of like making a clear sort of summary or story or game plan, that overall package is the service that I provide. So it is.
So you have to understand subcultures also, of like example Cebuano, where we can be self-deprecating at times, or we can come off like, the tone is harsh, but it's meant to be a joke. So some can be triggered with that if it's another part of the Philippines, that person you're interacting with.
I just came from a wedding. It was a Filipino-Japanese wedding where I was the host. They hired me as the host there. And there was this best man who was doing his wedding toast. And like he was saying a lot of, the jokes that you were just saying right now. And for me, I had to make sure that those jokes would be seen in a better light. Because obviously, if I just said it word for word, that would be a huge.
So was it well received?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Because sometimes you can walk into a room and it can be very cold, like they don't get the humor.
Yes. It was, of course, part of my role as the host to liven up the audience, And thankfully, both the bride and the groom appreciated it, and it seemed like everything went well. We had a fun time, and now it's a good memory.
So wait, you mentioned hosting. You also do hosting?
Yes. So I also am an events host, again freelance, events host, wedding host. The project.
What type of events, other than weddings? What about bachelor party
Yeah.
or anything or bridal showers
Yeah.
or what type of events?
Well, I try not to limit myself in terms of what I do. So I've done basically like corporate events, like let's say the sort of company wants to do, let's say, an outing, and they would like someone
outing
to-
or some awarding ceremony. Okay.
But of course, talking about personal events, as you said, like bridal shower, things like that, if they need a host to help them out, then yeah, definitely more than willing to help out. For me right now, majority of the work that I do is more bilingual events hosting. So, for instance, with the Filipino-Japanese weddings, what happens there is that although I host, I speak in English, but I actually give a translation from time to time to sort of explain what are the processes in the wedding, like the sort of shoe game. Do you remember, like, race if you think this is the person who's ano, or
so you have to conceptualize
Oh, yeah.
the games,
Yes.
the punchlines.
Yes, yes.
Wow. So I imagine that's outside of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
given I've known you as similar to me, an
Yes.
introvert.
Yes.
And of course, as a host, you have to
Yes.
perform, be lively.
Yes.
So it's good that you also embarked on that
I
for
mean,
your growth also,
it's-
personally.
Like, I'll be honest with you, Mike. I think that it is definitely challenging, because whether it is learning games for a wedding or whether it is learning new vocabularies, let's say to talk about farming in interpretation or to talk about medical terms in interpretation, it's definitely a different ballpark every single time. And so what I try to do is to be more adequate, to be worth what people are paying me to do. I have to really study in advance to really try to get a feel.
So when did you begin the hosting?
Oh, that was actually also the same year that I came back.
Photography?
Yeah. No. So
Photography 2015, right? you
yes,
mentioned.
that's right. So
You came back what year?
that-
After Odette,
after
this
Odette.
was 2022.
2022.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So I started out my hosting career also at that same time in 2022. Of course, when I was back in Japan, I had the opportunity to host as well for my friends, you know, when they were about to have an engagement, things like that. But I think I just thought of it or made it as a more professional thing when I came back.
Okay. Interesting. So you're exploring different fields, which is
It's-
remarkable. And I commend you for that, because even myself, there are things I may have wanted to try, but I never really took that leap. So it's admirable to have that courage to really go for it.
I mean, again, and I'm just gonna be honest with you, Mike. No, like, you know, I don't know if I would be considered as courageous in that aspect, because aside from doing interpretation, I also fall back to one of the jobs that I grew up in, which is supply chain management. So when I came back here as well, with that supply chain management experience, I also use it as my job right now as a consultant, and I do a lot of consulting work for different Filipino companies. So they hire me to fix a problem in their system, to fix a problem in their supply chain process, whether that's basically procurement, logistics, or forecasting for accurate figures. And
So you do consultation?
yeah, to a certain extent also. Basically, like if they would like me to be their in-house consultant, like a lawyer of sorts, then I also do that as well.
Maybe I can also try consulting
For sure.
for our industry.
Definitely.
I think there are commonalities from where you're from, so it's still marketing a product, it's still sales. So
Yeah.
I think many of the things you know would still apply. Yeah.
For sure, and you know, I'd be more than happy to help out. And so, with that consulting, that sort of became a that's sort of like my bread and butter at this point. While at the side, of course, I do my interpretation, translation, and photography. That's
So what's a usual day like for you? Is your schedule packed? You have your calendar sorted out in advance?
So for me, most of what I do at this point is basically focusing my work on the consultation aspect of supply chain, because right now I'm being employed to take care of some supply chain processes. So that's usually what takes up most of my time during the day. But of course, if a interpretation request or job or translation job comes like from time to time, I make sure to block my schedule to accommodate that. And then when the day finishes, I then have my next job, which is to teach freelance online.
This is all primarily here in Cebu.
Yes, but in terms of, let's say, my interpretation work, I do fly to Japan for interpretation. I do fly to Manila. My most recent interpretation job was actually at Gensan because I was doing work for Century Pacific with some of their translation requests as well. And with my teaching, it is online. So regardless of where my students are, I have some Japanese that want me to teach them English in Japan. And I have, of course, our Filipinos that want to learn Japanese to be relevant or to be able to use it in their work. So yeah, I do all of that online.